thank you so much for coming out to ISSessions. We got some cool stuff for you today. We got some cool articles. We have an extra long article from my friend Tio over here that he's going to go through. I'm very excited to read about it. So today's schedule, we're going to start with the news. We'll take a little break, and then we have a panel discussion with some guest speakers here. So I'm looking forward to that. But without further ado, we'll get started with some of the news we got for this week.
All right, so this is a pretty interesting story. So one of the big trends in the threat landscape, I guess, is threat actors using multiple ways to extort their victims. So, we all know our data encryptions and our data exfiltrations, the classics. Sometimes groups will also DDoS their victim as an extra way of exerting pressure. But Black Hat, who also goes by ALF-V, seems to be the first one to use this new tactic. They actually filed an SEC complaint against their victim, Meridian Link. So the rule that Black Hat is claiming Meridian Link is in violation of is a pretty new one from the SEC. They adopted it July this year. And the gist of it is publicly listed companies have to disclose significant cyber incidents within 4 days. There's a little bit of nuance there. So of course, there's the whole significant part. I think their wording is if it has material impact. So there's probably going to be some back and forth on what exactly that entails. And also it's not 4 days after the actual attack, it's 4 days after the company is aware that it is significant. So a little bit of gray area there with that rule. And we've also gotten some more details on the nature of the attack from Black Hat and Meridian Link, who ended up confirming the attack. Black Hat claims the attack occurred November 7th and Meridian Link became aware of it the same day. That doesn't exactly line up with Meridian Link's story. They're saying November 10th, but either way, we're on the same range. Also, only data exfiltration in this one, so no encryption, which seems to line up with Meridian Link's statement. They said the attack had minimal business impact, and they're still working to figure out if customer data was actually impacted. And then on Black Hat's leak site, they published some details around the incident, and they've also posted screenshots of the actual complaint form they filled out and the automated response from the SEC after submitting it. So it does seem like they did follow through on this. However, Black Hat might have gone a bit ahead of themselves because the rule doesn't actually take effect until mid-December. For small businesses, it's even longer actually, up until sometime in 2024, that rule takes effect. So it seems unlikely that Meridian Link will actually get any fines for this, but I've seen some people speculate that this isn't really, it wasn't Black Hat's goal to get Meridian Link hit with some fines, it's more so to make an example of them. So when they do breach somebody in that mid-December range, now they'll have this story on their mind. So that's my story. This one comes courtesy of Ab, but he got tied up with some stuff, so I'll be presenting it on his behalf. So the EU, the lawmakers over there are proposing some new regulation, IDAS 2.0. It's a significant regulation, and they're basically describing it as like a way to modernize identity on the internet, or something along those lines. But it's garnered a lot of criticism as of late from various groups, kind of spearheaded by Mozilla. And they're saying this has some serious implications for civilians and puts them at risk for surveillance. So when you're visiting a site and you're using HTTPS, there's a certificate involved which is used to help set up that secure connection. And these certificates are provided by certificate authorities, or CAs. Now the rule, specifically Article 45, would restrict browsers' abilities to not trust certificates. So if the certificate is trustworthy, your connection is going to get set up. But if the CA is not a very trustworthy CA, your browser will probably reject that. This would actually restrict the browser's ability to reject certificates from CAs that are backed by EU governments. So this sets up the risk because, in theory, if you got a government who's set up a deal with some CA where they'll be able to basically set up a man-in-the-middle attack and intercept traffic and decrypt it for citizens connecting to those websites. So a lot of risk right now, so we're going to be seeing how that pans out and if it actually takes effect. But that's it for Ab's story.
So this story is one that was linked into Discord by Chris, and I really liked it. I like going through it and reading it. It's just very long, so I can't go over all the in-depth parts of it. This is more just a quick summary of every point that was covered in the article, but I do suggest you read it. So this is about agonizing serpents, which is an Iranian-linked APT, and they've been active since 2020. They usually target like specifically Israeli technology and education sectors. The entry vectors that they used to gain access in this specific case was just internet-facing web servers, which they then used to deploy web shells. They used several public scanners to map the network afterwards. For example, MBT scan, WinEggDrop, and NIMScan. The article goes much more in depth into how they were used and what specifically they do. Then they did some they tried to do some credential stealing. They wanted to obtain administrative credentials. Sorry, this is not working at all.
We'll just roll with it.
Yeah. Then after they tried to get some administrative credentials, they started doing some lateral movement where they used Plink to create remote tunneling and establish connections within the remote machines. They then tried to steal and exfiltrate data where they were using like the thing they created, which they called SQL extractor, to go within SQL databases and extract like ID numbers, passport scans, emails, any other information that they deemed worthwhile before they executed some wipers to completely try and wipe their presence. The wipers that they used were specifically multi-layer wiper, partial washer wiper, and BFG agonizer wiper. They share some code similarities to other things they've used in the past, but a lot of them are new. And again, the article goes really in depth into how these kind of work, and it's a good read. And then afterwards, they attempted to bypass EDR solutions. They tried multiple tools and techniques because they haven't done this a lot in the past. Anytime one of them failed, they would just try again with a new technique that they found. So this does suggest that the group is becoming more advanced and better at like creating attacks and going after companies. And the Unit 42 researchers attribute it to agonizing serpents by seeing multiple code similarities in the wipers with previous attacks. They saw lots of code similarity in the web shells. The destructive nature of the attack, specifically trying to just wipe the company and for not much gain, shows that it's similar to what they've done in the past. And mostly just specifically targeting Israeli organizations led them to believe that this is agonizing serpents.
All right, this one's short and sweet, nothing much to it. But basically, Google's threat analysis group, they discovered that threat actors were exploiting a zero-day vulnerability in the Zimbra collaboration email server. Pretty much what it was is they were able to steal sensitive information by sending them like a link they would click on, and they'd be able to steal information from their emails as well as enable like auto forwarding to their own email. So they just got every future email that they would get sent to. They leveraged a vulnerability, CVE 2023-37580 from last week. You guys know how to read those now. They've been using it since June, and the exploit was basically just, like a cross-site skipping issue, and they were able to get all the information from the email. The threat actors specifically targeted government employees in Greece, Moldova, Tanzania, Vietnam, and Pakistan. Basically, Google didn't really disclose any detailed information about what they got, who was the exact threat actors, or anything important, but it really does display the importance of timely security updates. It's been patched now. They have an official patch. When it happens, they released an emergency patch for people to download, but there's still current systems active that are vulnerable to this. And there's a few other medium vulnerabilities that are still active on these servers that they haven't patched yet. So make sure you update your stuff. All right, that's it for the news. Gonna take a little break. Catch up with you guys.
Okay, so now that it's 7:30, I guess we can start off. Thank you guys for coming here. We all do appreciate you guys taking the time out of your days to just answer some questions we have, because obviously when it comes to like career paths, it's a big concern for students, so it's obviously very helpful that you're here. Do have some questions pre-made already, but we also will be accepting questions from people who are in the Discord, not attending here today, as well as people here if you guys have any questions. But yeah, I guess we can start by introducing yourselves. We can start here and kind of go over, if you like.
Sure. My name is Hendra. I have 2 jobs, full-time and part-time. Full-time, I'm a technical security counselor. Counselor means it's just like any other consultant, but since I keep a book, they give me a counselor title. Typically, with counselor, I work with CISOs and CIOs to talk about or to discuss security strategy. We build governance structure and a few other things, and work for Infotech Research Group. It's a consultancy based in London, Ontario, and it grows, but we have clients across the world. Like I have a few clients in London, UK, and I have several clients in United States, but most of my clients are in Canada. My part-time job, I'm a faculty member. I teach at Seneca Polytechnic. They got upgraded. And occasionally I teach at U of T at the Fields Institute Mathematics, at the Faculty of Mathematics.
Thank you
Right.
very much.
My name is excuse me. My name is Ignatius Michael. I'm a senior manager at a startup called Eco Cybersecurity, leading the proactive security services. So red teaming, security research, pen tests, whatever you would call it. I used to have 2 jobs. I used to teach at Seneca, but not anymore. Maybe next year. But yeah, I've been in the industry for about 7 years now, specializing in offensive security, and happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm Jan. I'm a security engineer also at Deepco with Iggy. I lead up some of the software engineering efforts, so we're building MDR, secure file sharing, as well as DevSecOps. I finished school 2019, so I've been kind of in the industry for going on 4.5, 5 years now, and I've kind of flipped between both cybersecurity as well as software engineering. I used to have a second job as well. It wasn't as cool as theirs, but I taught little kids how to code in Python, so I guess it's still teaching.
That's super cool.
Respectable.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. So I guess we can just kind of hop into some of the questions. First question we have here is just if you guys can take turns or however you like to handle it. But can you guys just share like your career path, like what key skills you believe are like essential for someone aspiring into like getting into like penetration testing, or your experience, like Blue Hat, like what kind of work experience and skills do you guys think help?
We can start.
Yeah, start. With respect to cybersecurity, a few domains. So, for example, I started in doing everything cybersecurity, and then I focused in a SOC, Security Operations Center domain, dealing with incidents. Then after that, my career progressed into risk assessment, GRC. Pretty much GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance. And that's when I worked at CIBC, Simply Financial, and that's my portfolio. After that, I joined the consultancy company, the one I mentioned earlier. And over the course of my career, I think the most important piece of skill to have is the ability to work with people, right? I mean, different people have different background, different way of looking at things, and they also have different approach to solving problems. So the ability to work with people and try to see from their perspective is the one that makes the job much easier, and it's the one that allow you to get promotion. Right? Because otherwise, if you can work with people, and then there are 10 people in your team, if you can work with 5 of them, it's really hard to get a promotion. Because that means you'll be pissing off 5 people immediately, right? Right the day you get the promotion. So that's going to be one of the skill that I find super useful.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. For me, my start was a little bit different. I started through the path of a help desk IT support guy, you know, racking up server, doing cablings, asking clients if they have turned off or restarted their computers. Did that for like a year and a half, 2 years, and that's when I actually went to school for cybersecurity at Seneca College. Seneca, what is it?
Polytechnic, yeah.
Polytechnic. But the majority of their courses were mainly focused on blue team and reversing and stuff like that. And it wasn't until my first internship where I got put on to a pen test engagement. So that's essentially how I got started. And from there, I moved to consulting companies like KPMG, for example. After that, just moved on through the course of offensive security, and that's how I got started. But in terms of, I think, depending on what you want to do, for offensive security, I think one of the more important traits that you would have is curiosity and persistence. I think those two are the major differentiators, whether you're going to be a good offensive security or pen tester or not. Those two are, I think, my top two, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, following up with you guys, I think they nailed it pretty well. I went to Ryerson, or I guess it's called TMU now, Toronto Metropolitan, right, something like that. So first job I kind of left, I was a security analyst, which was, it was a small consultancy, and I kind of did a bit of everything. I did help desk, I did, SOC analysis, I did writing scripts, whatever kind of needed to be done. After that, I kind of bounced over to a startup where I was brought on as a security engineer, but really true, I was just another software engineer, which was fine, it was a good time. And then now I went over to Deep Cove, and it's again kind of similar where, we jump around a lot. I think working with people is probably the most important. I mean, you guys being here already is kind of like a big step just because you're clearly social, you know how to talk to people. And you'd be surprised, it's kind of rare in the industry, it is.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who might be really, really good technically, but they're hard to work with, or they're just not social, and career limiting factor. But yeah, like Ignatius said as well, adaptability is huge. I mean, things change really, really quickly, be it, a new vulnerability comes out, or your company decides to head in a new direction, so being adaptable is super important. And it gets frustrating, like this job kind of sucks sometimes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So just putting up with it sometimes, because it gets better, you go through waves where sometimes you're like, oh, this is awful, or oh, this is better. So just keep on persevering,
Especially if you get like clients who are not very easy to deal
Oh,
with.
yeah.
I gotta get a bunch of
awful
this.
clients sometimes.
Yeah.
But I worked at a company where we had clients in Pakistan, in Brazil, in Japan, at all hours of the time. It's a pain, but you put a smile on and you deal with it.
Yeah. Especially when they think that they know more than you, then it's like, what's the point of hiring us if you think you know more than us, right? So it'll happen a lot. But yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Ignatius, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So I'm really considering going into pen testing for
Okay.
my career, but I would also, if possible, would love to do something related to that for my co-op. I'm trying to do things now. I'm only in second year right now, so my stuff goes through this year plus third year in the co-op. I'm trying to do things that will give me an advantage to get into that position. Is there anything that you could think of that I could work on for the next year and a half that could give me an edge?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question was, resources and anything that you can do to kind of put your foot in the door, right, in terms of offensive security. Yeah, start with going to OASP.org if you haven't already. Understand the fundamentals of web application vulnerabilities, and from there you can, I would recommend opening up an account on HackerOne. Just play around with it. There's a lot of reports of bugs and vulnerabilities that people had already posted in past, and that's how you learn. And from there you can, I typically, I think for someone who's in school right now, it might be worth it to be involved in CTFs, and open up an account on Hack the Box and play CTF style kind of boxes to kind of give you the good fundamentals. But the most important thing for you to get, I guess, to get into offensive security is the network. Like, you need to go to B sites, you need to go to Sector and talk to people who are already in the field, because you'll be surprised how many people have come up with that we were just chatting casually, and they're like, hey, what are you in? Offensive security. And it's like, hey, I'm looking for a pen tester. Hey, I'm looking for whatever, right? And then from there you can kind of like build your network. I think who you know is very, very important, because that will land you your first job in cybersecurity. Of course, you'd have to be able to back it up with your skills and you know what you've done in the past, but knowing who you know is very important. So, yeah.
Awesome.
We should point out he hires the interns.
Correct.
Just saying.
Yeah.
So you need to link up.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely, yeah. For sure. Good question, though.
Perfect. So the next question here is, what are some of the most like significant trends and challenges you have observed in the field within the most recent years? Because obviously, everything has kind of gone through changes as of recently in the last like 5 years even. So how has that affected like this career path and the cybersecurity as a whole? Or if you guys can also speak to like your personal with pen testing or stuff like that as well.
Good, me?
Sure. You can say it.
All right, sure. I thought we would go the other way.
Well, we can do that too.
Okay, sure, you go first.
Because no one wants to answer, that's a doozy of a question.
No, I'll answer.
No, I can go. It's I think one of the biggest things I'm definitely noticing is when it comes to talent especially, there seems to be kind of a growing gap with not necessarily what's expected to know, but the fundamentals of things that we would have learned when we were in school, right? I'm not seeing new grads come in with it as often anymore. And I'm seeing kids who, they finish computer science and they don't understand really how IP works. They don't really understand how DNS works. And this is something I've seen increasingly more, especially, maybe less so now that hiring's gone a little tighter, but lacking that very low-level, fundamental, this is how a computer works, is something I'm seeing increasingly less of. And it's concerning because, it could be very well in 10, 20 years, we're going to have to call up the guys who retired and be like, hey, the internet broke and we don't really know how this thing works anymore. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one I've seen.
Yeah, I think another thing that I want to bring up is a lot of people, I guess, like from the 3 years that I've taught at Seneca, a lot of the students at the time, I asked them, why do you want to go into cybersecurity, right? Some of you may say it's, you're passionate about it, you like it, but you'll be surprised how many people answers is because of the money. And even though cybersecurity can make you a lot of money, you need to be able to back it up. Like, people are not gonna hire you just because you went to a cybersecurity program, right? You need to know your fundamentals, and it's pretty challenging nowadays, especially with a lot of hiring freeze, et cetera, and you need to be putting in a lot more effort than the rest of the people, because going to university and graduating from a cybersecurity program is pretty easy. It's the extra effort that you're putting in, which is good that you guys are coming in tonight, right? Like, trying to understand the process, being involved in your university and stuff like that. So, yeah, I think finding people who are actually passionate about cybersecurity is getting more and more challenging these days, I would say.
Yeah, I think to add to that, I completely agree with what they're saying, 100%, because nowadays people are just going through it quickly instead of going through it with I know quickly is important, right? At the same time, make sure that you learn the stuff on the way to graduation. Don't just go through the courses and then just graduate, but then when it comes to put that knowledge into use, you don't do as well, right? So that's kind of a waste of whatever years, 3 years, 4 years of your time. And what I see in the industry is, and sadly, there's a huge gap in terms of demand and supply when it comes to cybersecurity. But the question is, how come we have such a high demand and we have so many students graduating every semester? Well, we can't employ them. The problem is what they just mentioned. people come out with without any solid understanding of cybersecurity, even the basic, like what is IP address. And usually if you ask them IP address, like you get 50% right, 50% wrong. But when you ask them like which port number it's used, and then you get down to 25%, and you keep losing that. Those quality people, right? That's one. And the problem is this: if now let's take a bigger picture perspective. And with cybersecurity, it's an industry that is growing fast. Not because cybersecurity is growing, it's because the technologies that require cybersecurity as part of the element to protect the business. Because cybersecurity, at the end of the day, it's solving business problem. It's not solving technology problem, right? I hope we can agree on that. Because if cybersecurity is solving technology problem, then we don't have any job. Like you don't have three of us sitting here. It will be like, firewalls, endpoint security, and something else, right? So cybersecurity is solving business problem. And the problem, the issue is the industry continues to grow in technology. Like AI is one of the new things. And we all know that. It's going to be big. I know there are a few technologies in the past which a lot of people are talking about, or they hyped it up, to sound like it's going to be big, but it's not backed by evidence. It's easy to see the signals. For example, with AI, we can see that Microsoft is throwing $13 billion into AI. So you kind of know if someone is going to invest that amount of money, it's going to be huge, right? Or it's going to be a big flop. Either way, but someone like Microsoft who has survived for so long, you can tell that they can pretty much tell what's coming up. So with AI, it's going to change the game, right? If you don't have the foundation, back to the point, then how can you adopt quickly? That's the point I'm trying to make. And so since you have 4 years here and it will go fast, my suggestion is to squeeze every single drop of juice out of it, right? Talk to your professor, make some friends, learn as much as possible, because a course is just a subset of what you learn, but actually there's more to that.
I agree. Yeah, I think just final thing, sorry, with the emerging of LLM and machine learning and everything, it's going to accelerate the way technologies will improve. And as a cybersecurity professional, it's not that you're going to get a job and that's it, you just write it out. It's more like you have to keep up to date with these things, because eventually someone's going to ask you how to secure these things, and you have to be able to answer the questions, right? So it's not just you need to know the fundamental of security, but also the technology, right? So you need to understand how LLM works, the different type of model and the different type of threat models that you need to be able to kind of come up with for those specific technologies. So those are it's gonna be very important. And if you want to make the money, you have to be able to understand a lot of fundamentals of technology and security as well. And being able to communicate that as well, it's very important, right? So.
Perfect. So to kind of piggyback off that, the idea is like obviously things are changing, and having the fundamentals are a good base. Is there any way that like teams or your guys' personal experience where you're able to stay ahead of changes rather than have to adapt like as they surprise you? Is there like any way of keeping ahead of those, and is there roles which allow like this continuous learning to keep ahead of that stuff?
I have a good question for that. A good answer for that. I think surrounding yourself with the right team who are also constantly pushing you to, like, hey, check out this new article. Hey, check out this new threat, right? It's very important for you to have a good team who can support you in terms of identifying gaps and identifying new technologies so that you can kind of keep ahead. Again, LinkedIn also is another great source of information, because people would just post like 24/7. I can't say for the other things, but for offensive security, I'm subscribed to different organizations, and they always produce articles and new attack surface, new proof of concept, vulnerabilities, etc., etc. So I think those two are, I think, one of my go-to, like having a good team behind you, as well as like doing your own due diligence in terms of looking at social media, Twitter or X, I guess. Yeah, this doesn't.
Well, I was gonna say I get most of my news from Twitter.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good InfoSec professionals on Twitter. There's a lot of good communities and circles. And there's been multiple times where I've seen vulnerabilities come out on Twitter, even as much as 2, sometimes 3 days before they kind of even got posted on their own company's website. If you guys remember Log4j like a couple years ago, right? That one I saw on Twitter like almost a week before everyone kind of reacted to it. I'm like, pay attention to this.
Yeah.
Some of the people have left because, you know, it kind of got Elonified and it's not quite the same, but there's still a lot of good people on Twitter that you should be following. Dave Kennedy's probably my favorite one. Yeah.
Cool. Kind of piggyback off of this, I know you guys said that, like, for example, AI or knowing the basic fundamentals of like IP or just how a computer works. How do you decide like which things to sink your time into? Like what is actually valuable to learn in depth and what is fine to just learn broad strokes? How do you like make that distinction so that you're not just wasting time learning something really in depth that you're never going to use?
That's a fair question. I don't expect anyone to like go learn theory of computation, like how a computer reads the ticker back and forth, right? But especially when, at least in software engineering, a lot of things nowadays are abstract. There's a library for everything. No one really knows why it kind of works that way. The best way, in my opinion, is to identify what exactly it is you want to do, be it proactive testing, be it software engineering, be it DevSecOps, whatever, and just slowly scratch them, because you'll come across bugs, right? And once you understand the underlying issue of why that bug exists, that's kind of where you want to poke and prod and spend your time getting into that, because it'll come up again. We constantly joke, the issue is always DNS. And it usually is.
Yeah, I think for me it's the same. For proactive security, I feel like it depends on the business needs, right? If your team does not have somebody who can evade EDR solutions, then you'd have to be the guy who has to do some research on how to evade the EDR, right? Of course, once you progress throughout your career, especially in like proactive security, you're gonna have the ability to build a team, right? And at that point, you're kind of like, hey, I really like, for example, for myself, hey, I really like doing applications, you know, finding bugs, breaking this, breaking that, but I can't really focus on this, but also on kernel exploitation or whatever. That's when, you know, I hire someone like Abdul, for example, right? Just using you as an example because he does work with me. So I hire him and then hire someone else who's going to be the SME for IoT or hardware or whatever it may be, right? But in the beginning of your career, you're going to get put into situations where you're kind of forced into learning different things, and that's where you start to build your own experience and expertise. And the next time somebody asks you about like, hey, have you set up a C2 environment for your red team? You're gonna be like, yeah, I did this, right? Or have you ever tested a website? Yeah, I did this, right? So it comes with experience, but in terms of knowing the fundamentals across the board and being able to talk to it or speak to it at a high level, that's what we value more, I feel like, yeah.
Your natural curiosity will kind of lead you there.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but again, to add to that, I mean, get the foundation, like the basic foundation, and then the nice thing about cybersecurity and the reason why I stayed this long in this industry is because you have the foundations, right? When you have the foundations, you can now pick and choose, like what's your favorite topic. And the good thing is, you don't have to stay in there for a long time. So I used to love incident response, right? I used to love to look through logs and try to figure out what's happening. But after 5 years, I had enough of it, and then I moved. And then it's fun, because as there are so many, well, there are not so many, there are 8 domains in which you can always pick one and then pay attention to. But then once you know the basic, it's not hard to switch. And people will actually let you switch, right? And again, it goes back to having the network of friends and colleagues that you can say, hey, I'm done with this area. What can you tell me where I should start with this specific domain? And they will tell you. And then again, going back to the same resources, it is X or LinkedIn. Just learn a lot about that domain. And then the good thing is it actually expands your knowledge, right? Because you have prior knowledge that you can use, and it makes your resume much better.
It surprises me it took you 5 years to figure out IR is not fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
but it's really fun.
I would have figured it
Well,
in like 3
it was
days.
before. I've been in the industry for 25 years. So back then, we didn't even have Splunk. So I had to use syslog. I had to set up my own syslog.
Oh god.
Yeah, and there was no such thing as
Like Sim or whatever.
yeah, no, SIM is new.
Sim.
Oh, it's new. Now it's kind of old, right? I had to build a Linux system on my own that I had to go buy a RAID disk. Yeah, I had to mount it. And then again, going back to what he was saying, right? You gotta always learn. And at that time, well, for whatever reason, it didn't mount properly. So I had to learn how to recompile the Linux kernel, right? Because the module was had a bug. I had to fix the bug, and then I could mount the RAID. Now I could use it. So that's the thing, right? And going back to what he was saying, just don't give up. Just keep trying. Talk to people. Search the internet, and
Figure it out.
figure it out.
Perfect. So I know that this is probably the question you guys hear the most when you're asked about like getting into the career path. But like, how important are industry certifications?
Oh god.
Like, I know this is a very common question. It seems to be a common question that comes up when we have any kind of panel, whether it be like a co-op panel or a career path panel. Like when you guys think of looking to hire someone, in your specific example, I guess, as well as like who you want to work with even, do like certain certs, if any, have any kind of like weight in those kind of decisions?
Of
Go
course.
ahead.
I'm very opinionated about this. No, certs are, okay, so I did, for full disclosure, I did Sec Plus before I graduated, and I'm kind of being poked and prodded into doing CISSP now. It's not my choice.
I know how that feels.
Right? So I don't think by any stretch of the word they're useless, and there are some very, very useful ones. Sec Plus was great because it kind of got my foot in the door, and it is something that sets you apart from everyone else when you're applying. So if you're a new grad and you don't necessarily have industry experience, you didn't have an internship or a co-op, it'll set you apart. It's something, especially if you actually understand the concepts, right? Now, I'll be honest, when I see a resume and they have certs listed like they're collecting Pokemon badges, it's kind of a red flag. Because like, what are you doing? At the same time, once you kind of get to a more senior level, and there's useful ones, practical ones, right? Like OSCP, that one's practical. The Kubernetes ones are very practical, because those ones actually have you working in a lab environment where you actually do that, right? Well, some of the more, like Sec Plus, for example, or CISSP, it's very, here's 4 things, which one would you do first? And it's like, well, I would do all of them in this first minute. I don't really understand why, but so sometimes it's just for optics, to be totally honest. Like, if you want to get to that, like, higher level where you want to be a CISO potentially, or you want to be kind of like super important in your company as a security professional, you might have to bite the bullet and just write them, right? Because if nothing else, it's for optics. Might change in the future. I think maybe there's less kind of emphasis on it than there was, but a lot of times when you're competing with others, having that little 5 extra letters next to your name, it helps.
Yeah, I agree. I think, well, for me, I was never really the biggest fan of school or exam. So when it comes down to certification, I freaking hated it. I like training, don't get me wrong. Like, if you want to go through training, go for it. But the idea of exams and having to pass something to get like a 4-letter whatever at the end of your name, it's not a requirement for me personally, especially when I'm looking at resumes, right? It would be nice to have, and I would highly encourage you to, especially while you're in school, try to take the beginner level ones, of course, to kind of get initial knowledge. But if you do put that on your resume, you have to be ready for me to grind, to actually grill you on that specific certification, right? Because a lot of people take, for example, OSCP or PNPT just to have it, but they rush through the material to the point where they don't really understand what's going on. They're just copy pasting PowerShell or CMD commands, and it just, you can't do that. So it's either you're really committed and take the certs and being able to speak to it, or just don't take it at all, because that's kind of like a differentiator for me personally. Yeah.
It'll help. It'll make you more likely that I'll talk to you in an interview. It doesn't necessarily make you more likely to get the job unless you actually know the stuff you study.
Correct. And it'll help you pass through the HR screening, of course. That will help you a lot. But for me, from my perspective, it's not a requirement for me to hire somebody who's just entering the field, to be honest.
And to be honest, there's people who have, like, I've met ISSPs and I'm like, how did you pass that?
Yeah, you'll be surprised.
Yep.
You'll be surprised.
Yes.
Yeah, and in comparison, I've had someone with no certs with like 10 CVEs in their names, right? So it's honestly, it's for the selling points. I'm not sure if you have similar or different experience.
I have a different perspective. I agree with them 100%. I think take that for sure. But what I'm going to add is I actually have about 7 certificates in cybersecurity. But I'll give you my perspective. It's not because they are wrong. It's actually to add to what they have. And to get a job, yes, whatever they say, it's 100% on the dot there. Now, if you are going to take a certificate, do it the way I do it. How did I do it? I join the company, and when there's a training, I sign up. So that means, what do you get? You get free certification, one, and you get to study, and they pay you to study. Why not? And the other thing is, it helps you, because every year you get a performance review, right, from the manager. So one of the elements to say that you are doing a good job for the past year is to say, did you do personal development? You have to do it anyway. So you add that as one of the personal development items. So you say, yeah, I completed it. Company loves that. And that's why, and that goes back to CISSP. I've been in the industry for 25 years. When did I get my CISSP? 2 years ago. Because I could not, I didn't want to pay $500. I know I'm cheap, but
Is it 500? I thought it was
It's
1,000.
5,000.
500 US, right?
Oh, 500 US?
Yeah, back then, and now it's a lot more, yeah, and I didn't want to pay, well, when I started my career 20 years ago, it was 125, I'm like, no, I'm not paying that much.
I think we have to preface
I spent it on Starbucks, like, what, it's way better, it's a better investment,
I think we have
but,
sorry,
Yeah.
didn't mean to interrupt. We have to preface the questions in terms of like, if you're a student, probably not worth it, but if you join a company and they pay for it.
oh yeah,
then
and that's why I did it, that's why I did it.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I passed it. Once you have the experience, it's easy. I know CISSP is really hard, but then once you have the experience, it's a walk in the park. Well, I still have to study, but it's a walk in the park.
Did they make like really tricky, like the questions?
Now they have adaptive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just like learns.
Wow.
Yeah, so if you answer,
No, it does.
yeah, it gets harder if you answer right. And the good thing is CISSP used to be 8 hours exam, not only. So I was like, no way I'm sitting in the room 8 hours. Now it's adaptive. So if they know you're going to fail, they just kill the exam right there.
It does.
But it's only 2 hours still.
It does help because it's split up into different domains. So if
Yeah.
you're like kind of doing worse in one domain, it'll give you more of those questions to try to get like a certain amount of
Yep,
percentage of the
I like
domain.
it.
But
It's
yeah,
great.
for the ones I've written, it's miserable. I went up to like the 43rd floor of the old CIBC building, and the lady's like, "It's in this closet. You're gonna sit here for the next 2 hours."
Yeah. I got lucky there because I did some. I looked at the website, which test center is the best, so I picked that one. Yeah. So for certification, don't pay with your own money unless you have to, right? But do it after you got into a company as part of your development plan, so you can hit multiple birds with the same stone. It goes to your resume, it looks good on you, and someone else is someone else is paying for it.
Always ask your employer to pay for it.
Yeah,
The worst they'll say is no.
yeah.
Well, you're paying
Oh,
for
our
this.
man was like taking notes.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah.
Would you say that there's any certification where like the actual content of it was very valuable to learn? So like even if we can't afford to, let's let's say, get the certification, just finding the information that it contains.
Oh,
would be
yeah.
worthwhile.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually, like, a lot of people ask me that, and I was like, should I take, for example, OSCP, right? I just tell them, just look at the syllabus, and then just Google the rest. Like, the syllabus will show you, like, what is contained in the course, and then the rest you can just Google it or watch YouTube. Or, you know, there's a lot of DEF CON talks that mention it. It's you know, of course, certifications are really good if you really want to have a structured learning, because the information is provided for you, right? But sometimes I find it more interesting if you look at the syllabus and then learn it yourself, because there are a few things that you're gonna make the connections between one topic to the other that the course doesn't necessarily do it. For example, like I took my OSCP like in 2018 or 2017, I don't remember, and there's a lot of gaps between the material where I'm like, okay, like what does this mean, right? So what? Like I don't get the connection, whatever. But by doing the research on my own, it kind of gets me to think more critically and then kind of make the connection of, oh, it makes sense. So if I put like this payload here, it doesn't work because of ABC, right? And I don't know, but I can't speak to SCP right now, but back then when I took it, it was, I have a pretty strong opinion about it, because they just tell you to like try harder, and I couldn't really, I guess, learn properly in that way. So I don't know about now. I can't say anymore. I don't know where this stream is being posted in. I don't know. I just have a pretty strong opinion about it. So
Yeah. Why is it steam straight to the NSA?
yeah. But yeah.
Okay, so more of a like a personal question, not like premeditated. But since you guys were talking a lot about like resume building, and for example, you said if I see a bunch of, you know, certifications on a resume, it's kind of like, what are you doing? Would you say that there is some merit or help if you, let's say, have personal projects of your own that you highlight on your resume?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like this.
I like it.
100%.
Put your GitHub in there.
Yeah.
Listen, and even social stuff, like I'll be honest, even social stuff, projects help a lot. Now, if you post a project on your GitHub, I will go to your GitHub and look at it. If you just clone a repo from somewhere and put your name on it, I will know.
Yeah.
But if you actually worked on it on your own, yeah, it's huge because you actually did something. And to be totally honest, like even non-necessarily technical projects, like I'll give you a total example, like leadership qualities, right? I know people who went into leadership roles, and they're kind of, what they've done before is they were a guild master for World of Warcraft. There are skills that are applicable from there, believe it or not.
Oh, right there?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There we go.
You
hired, man.
gotta deal with planning, you gotta deal with drama. Oh my God. It's no different than the workplace. But highlight the stuff you do in your personal life that you think is transferable to what you're doing. Like, absolutely.
I don't think any of you know this, but I hired Abdul because he used to be a mod in my Discord channel. So I'm just saying, like it's everywhere. Like
So that's a skill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
My first personal project that I wrote, so my first job per se was, like I mentioned, teaching like 6-year-olds how to code in Python, right? And the personal project that kind of got it was I made like a roguelike where you kind of scroll through a maze in C, right? And it's not like I sat there and wrote it from scratch. No, I found a YouTube tutorial and slowly started modifying it to do my own thing and building it up so it was separate from that. So stuff like that, yeah, it'll absolutely help you out.
Yeah. Yeah, just to build on that, having your own personal blog. So before I joined DeepGov, I worked with RSM Canada, and the partner at the time for the cyber practice found my blog, and he connected with me, and that's how I got the job, right? Just from a blog post. So, like, I think it shows that you have a passion in the field, and then you're, you have initiatives to be able to kind of work on different projects on your own, and it's definitely a good look for your resume, I would say.
I think the way I look at it is it has to do with branding. How do you brand yourself, right? I think at the end of the day, if you want to get into a specific industry, specific role, then you just have to brand yourself. I do that. I do the same thing. I post things on LinkedIn that I feel like it's going to help me get the next job, and I think you should do that. And to take that a little bit further, I give my students projects from real business case, right? I'm hoping that if they solve this problem, they can post it on the LinkedIn. Feel free to tag me, right? And then I will help. I comment on it, so it will drive traffic into that specific project, and hopefully, going back to what he mentioned earlier, someone will pay attention and then reach out to them. So if you have done any cool project, I would say post it. Not just project. For example, if you're doing something good for the community, post it. Because, like I said, people love to work with people who can work with people. So if you coding for teaching kids coding, that is super awesome, because I mean, it shows that you have the patience to do that, right?
Yeah.
I know it's tough, but you have the patience, and post that because it shows the human element that comes out of you, and that has to do with branding, not just someone who knows how to code, because there are a lot of people. There are many people who knows how to code, but it's really hard to get someone who can work with kids
And communicate properly. Yep. And a lot of, so one thing that I tell people is really work on your LinkedIn. A lot of security professionals, especially at the VP level, management level, like whatever, they will see what's on LinkedIn. And if you post something that's pretty cool, and then someone like Hendra or someone like Jan liked it, it gets distributed towards their networks, right? And that's going to be spread to other CISOs and VPs. And LinkedIn is very important. And a lot of people don't really see the value of it yet, but I would highly recommend you touching up your LinkedIn and the projects and everything. That just be more active and engage with the community.
And don't get into political arguments all like that.
Don't get into yeah. Just look the other way.
Yeah. So again, unless you're running for an office, then yes.
Yeah.
It's how you brand yourself, right? If you're trying to be a cybersecurity professional, then don't get into political arguments.
Yeah.
Unless you are running for an office, that's a different case, right?
Correct. Another thing as well on LinkedIn, I'm just dropping like LinkedIn knowledge right now, but if you're early in your career and you don't necessarily know where you want to go into, and you get a job in SOC, don't put yourself as a SOC specialist, because the direction of your career is going to be derived based on what you put on there, right? If you still want to explore other things, you can just put like cybersecurity analyst. That way people will know that you're at that stage of your career where you're still, trying to touch on different things and still want to learn more. Because I've made a mistake, well, I guess not a mistake now, but at the time, I got an internship and it was just like offensive security. And a few years down the line when I actually I think I want to try IR, I think I want to try SOC. Nobody would hire me because all of my experience that I've put and every blog post that I post are about pen tests, and I didn't necessarily have what they looked at, I guess the knowledge in SOC or IR, right? Because my branding has been offensive security since I started my career. So just think about that a little bit more when you want to brand yourself.
Just don't lie on LinkedIn.
It's not so much of lying, it's more like make yourself a generalist first.
No, but he's right. I agree with him. I did the same after my first job. What was my first job? Developer/analyst was it, right? It's kind of like a stinky title almost. So I changed it to programmer.
There we go.
Cool.
More generic.
Yeah, and get a professional shot. Right? Don't post pictures of your dogs. No one cares, right? Unless you want to be a dog walker, then do that.
Yeah.
Again, if you're trying to be a security professional, then get a professional shot. And I think most schools have it for free, but I had to pay $60, which is painful.
I had to pay.
Yeah. See, we don't get that benefit. So while you're here or you're a student, get a professional shot because they do that, right? A career center, or whatever the case may be. And the problem is you have to update it if you get old.
If you get old.
Yeah, so don't show up in an interview like, what, this is your baby? And so get a professional shot, because that is your brand, right? Think of it as a store. If you walk into a store, what do you expect to see? A restaurant, then you expect some sort of clean environment and so on. So think of yourself, like how would you view this individual if you feel like, do I want to work with him or do I want to work with her? So get a professional shot. Just clean it up.
Perfect. Thanks. So Jamal should take out guild leader on his LinkedIn.
I'm gonna put it on.
Take
literally
the,
gonna-
take
A guild leader.
You have guild leader. No,
That's so cool.
There is volunteer experience, right?
Yeah.
Volunteer
Yeah.
I had plentiful volunteer experience when I was applying, and like it helps. It's something to talk about, right? Even when I was at my last job, I was at a startup, and they asked, like, you know, have you done any kind of leadership? Yeah, sure. I was president of my school. Of course you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good idea.
So I know throughout the questions, there's been like some alluding ideas to this kind of topic, but obviously it's pretty quick to learn that the InfoSec community within Toronto and the GTA is quite tight-knit, and like if you know one person, odds are you
Oh,
can know
yeah.
5 more.
Yes.
So messed up.
So what are the best ways that you guys feel you can start getting into that circle? Because obviously, again, it's tightly knit, so you obviously want to try to get
I
in.
just hang out with this guy.
No.
At every conference, I just just follow him. I was like, yo.
The way I do it is, that is so true. This is what I learned from someone else who, I call it, he's a mentor. He said it's it's a big industry, but it's a small community. And he said, brand yourself really well. Keep your reputation intact, right? And then that's one thing. And to answer your question, how do you get into it? Is to build your network one person at a time. Build the trust. Because at the end of the day, every business is a relationship. It's based on relationship, right? It's based on trust. It's more so in cybersecurity because we are dealing with critical systems and data. And to get into it, as you say, go to conferences.
Yeah.
Go to conferences. It's the best way to actually grow your network. And most of them are free. Even Sector, you can get it for free, right?
Yep, you can get the vendor pass.
Yeah, vendor
So just
pass.
walk around the vendor, talk to them.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, are you guys hiring?
I still do that. Like I still talk to vendors because, again, going back to what they were saying, you have to continue to keep up.
Yeah, I think once you know one person, that person will know 5 more people, and those 5 people will know 5 more people, and it's just, and at no time you'll, you mention a name, and you're gonna be like, oh, I've met that guy, or like I've met that girl. It's a pretty tightly knitted community. So again, if you mess up, right, then the community will also know, right? Oh,
Yeah.
good, that's the guy who did this, and like, oh shoot, like.
Unless it's a really huge messed up that you hack like a bang or something, that's different.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's just stupid messed up, that's so good. That's damaging to your career.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, how do you know?
Well, yeah, like he said, your first job, you're going to meet a bunch of people. And you probably won't know anyone else. And then you'll probably get your second job, and in your second job, you'll realize that, hey, the person from here actually knows the person from the first job. And then once you kind of start getting, you'll meet more people. You'll get more important, you'll go meet vendors, right? Other people who work at security companies. And then you'll end up going to Sector's, perfect example, right? And you'll cross paths with someone who knows someone else and knows someone else. And somehow you're always like maybe 2 people removed from anyone else in this community, right? Conferences are huge. Like they said, I think the vendor pass is free. You can go, you can frolic around. I'm not sure. I don't think the training's for free, but
No.
But anyways, the vendors are free. You can talk to them. Of course, like we're talking about LinkedIn. Reach out to people on LinkedIn if they have like an interesting page. Like I've had people reach out to me and be like, "Hey, how did you get to this point in your career?" Like, I'll talk to them. It does wonders to my ego. No, but seriously, most people would be happy to talk to people who are trying to. It's like, why not, right? Like if any one of you messaged me after this and was like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this or this," like, yeah, totally, I'd help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the key is finding a good mentor as well.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough.
That's very tough.
That's
But
very
once
tough.
you find somebody who actually is willing to spend their time like, oh, do this, do that. I know a guy who knows a guy who knows a guy. I can introduce you to them. That's when you're pretty much golden if you can find the right
Yeah.
mentor. Yeah.
And on the topic of building a brand, there are people in the community who have a brand, and some people like the brand and other people don't. Right? It's not always black and white. You're a good guy. You're a bad guy.
Yeah.
So keep an arm's distance until you're sure kind of where you want to be, and if this is someone you want to align with. And those happy hours after work, go talk to your coworkers, because you will run into them again.
Yep.
And you want to be, you maybe not invite them over for Thanksgiving, but you want to be friendly with them.
Perfect, thanks. So I guess we can kind of go, there's a couple more fun questions towards the end here. So like each of you, I guess, what's your favorite programming language? And like how does that differ from the actual practical languages like you're using in the workplace? Like do you prefer one language and it's different from what's in the workplace, or does it converge at all?
I mean, I can start with that one. For most things, I'll be honest, I use Python just because it's quick. It is an awful, awful language. You can attach a whole bunch of libraries to it if you want to multi-thread it, if you want to have you can attach a whole bunch of stuff. Once the app gets big enough, it's kind of a mess, right? Go is great, Rust is great for production like servers. Yes. Rust is great. I've used C in the past, I've used Java. Really, I don't have a favorite language because different languages are good for different things, right? And once you kind of learn a few, it's much easier to learn the others. Python's usually, like I said, if I have a dirty script that I got to write just to bang something out, Python, right? For a heavier production system, if I want to write an API, it's got to be something a bit more professional, so to speak.
I'm not a coder by any means, but I think Python would be number one for automation and doing some mundane tasks during testing. But I do like C# quite a bit for malware development. I think calling native Windows APIs is just very, very easy with C#, especially with the help of GPT-4. You just prompt them what you want, and it just does it for you. So, yeah.
For me, I was trained in C and C++, so that's how I started. But if I haven't been coding for a long time, and but in cybersecurity, I think it's important to have one scripting language that you can use. And I'm the one that I was using was Perl, but now if you ask me now, I will go to Python because it's so quick. You need something quick to get things done.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Python's like a minivan. It's not really fast, it's not really pretty, but neither are your tasks.
Yeah. It helps.
It helps. It gets you to point A to point B.
It does what it needs you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
All right.
I think we're getting kicked out.
No, we're good.
I'll take a stop.
Oh, here we go.
I need a motion. I didn't touch anything. Motion.
Are you sure?
Okay.
We've just been so still concentrated.
But yeah, I try to avoid like coding something manually, especially ever since like ChatGPT stuff. Like, I try to avoid
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
It's good. It's definitely good because at some point, especially if you're, I guess, in the proactive security or offensive security, you're gonna need to understand programming languages because there are some exploits that you need to modify, or there are some things that you need to do to make sure that this malware works for this environment. That type of things. But in terms of like actively developing something, I don't do that as much, to be honest. So.
But going back to what we said about know your fundamentals. You should know
Correct.
the basics of the
Correct.
programming language.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a question about consulting, and this probably also relates to like teaching programming to kids or just everything in general. How do you guys learn and get better at like relaying complex topics to people that don't know much technically and making it more like available to them so they can
Analogies.
sort
Lots
of
of
understand what
Yeah.
you're doing?
Yes. Or
you're right. Go ahead.
I take somebody like my cousin. She's a teacher. Well, she studied to be a teacher. No cyber tech, whatever background. I explained it to her. If she understands it, the execs are gonna understand it. So that's my hacks to do.
You gotta lean it into something. You gotta kind of throw it into their arena. You know what I mean? Because they understand what they know, and you kind of have to relate it to what they know.
Yeah.
It's like when I was teaching. This was 2017 when Fortnite was all the rage. So I had a kid. This was like 10, 11, and I explained for loops, and he's like, "Okay, but explain that in Fortnite terms."
That's awesome.
Right? It's stuff like that. Right? I had them when, and I remember I had a first grader. She was like 6 or I had to run back and forth to touch the locker, bring a note to the locker, bring it back, like a loop, right? Because she knows how to play tag, she knows how to play hide and seek, she knows how to run around and hit stuff. And you can apply the same thing when you go to executives, right? You're gonna need to understand that when you explain a very technical topic, you gotta explain to them how it relates to the business, right? If they're, you know, like if they're doing finance, you gotta kind of tie it into, okay, but how does this affect finance?
They don't care about the technicality, they just care about you, how you make them not lose money.
Yes.
So you have to kind of put everything into business context for them.
Yeah, I think to add to that, the trick that I have been using is something that, again, what you were saying, something that's very common to people. I use movie examples a lot. For example, before I came here, I was teaching zero trust. So it's really hard to explain, like traditional way of defending. You have walls after walls. So I said, have you watched Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers? Because that's the best example. You have to break into walls and you keep breaking until you get to the castle. And I think a lot of people understand the concept better than having subnets inside the network segmentation into a different subnet. So, yeah.
I think the ability to communicate your findings is very important, because I think it gets repetitive, I know, but that's where you're gonna make your money in cyber, because it doesn't matter how technical you are, if you can't communicate that to your management, there's really not much of a value there, right? So you have to be able to communicate these things.
This goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, like, you gotta be a person first and foremost. That's how you kind of advance. Your soft skills are just as important as your technical skills.
And the thing is, soft skills are harder to, well, you can't really teach soft skills, right? You can practice it, but it's different from learning Python.
Yeah.
You know, it's completely different, so, yeah.
Yeah, I still get because now I don't. The way it works is I usually have conversations over Teams call, right, instead of in person. Since most people are working from home, there are still people. And then at our company we have someone who listens to the call, the recording, and then provide feedback. I still have to work on my communication skills, so it's a never-ending process.
Yeah. Like, I think, yeah, it happens, right? I think it doesn't matter, because for me, I still stumble in my words sometimes when talking to clients, right? It's a part of your learning experience, and as you kind of grow in your career, you're gonna get more and more used to it. You're gonna get more comfortable, and it comes kind of like naturally to you.
Take opportunities as early as you can, right?
Yes.
It's easier if you're a junior and you screw up presenting something than if you're more senior.
Exactly.
Yes.
The pressure is much less.
So if you get opportunities early in your career to present in front of a large crowd of people, like I know there's like this industry, a lot of people go into programming or cybersecurity, like they went into it because they don't like to deal with people. But take the opportunities as early as you can. You'll thank yourself later on.
I actually have sort of, is it okay if I don't know if you have, it sounds good, thank you. So it's more of like a personal question for me, but it might apply to some people. So I'm currently working, I have to work, and I'm also in school. Right now I'm doing consulting and project management for an IT company in Montreal. It's not my favorite thing in the world, because it's like CRM and installing products for clients and stuff like that across Canada for car dealerships. But I would love the opportunity to have some kind of career in cybersecurity before I graduate. I don't even know if that's possible to do semi full-time, part-time. Do you guys know of any careers that I could potentially shift to while I'm in school, in sort of related to the field at the very least?
Yeah. Can I start?
Yeah.
Yes. I think go into sales.
I've already done so.
No, it's cybersecurity products.
It's
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's easy. Go into cybersecurity sales product, and then walk your way. And then after that, if you love dealing with people, then stay in sales. If you don't like it as much, you can always go into a solution engineers that you deal less with people, but you still have some sort of you still have to deal with people, but not as much. I mean, clients. And then if you love the technology more, then go into research all the way.
Even project management. If you can find a good cyber company that's hiring for project managers, that's going to be your entry point as well, right? Because you're going to meet a lot of security professionals and coordinate for them about different projects. You'll be able to learn how to communicate their findings to the developers, and then the developers feedback to the security team. It's, you know, like those type of opportunities exist, and it also depends on the business as well, right? Even if the business is not per se like have a job listing, reach out to like the HR person for that specific company. Like, hey, you know, I'm a student. I'm interested in ABC. Do you think you'll have any future opportunities or current opportunities for like a part-timer or internship, blah, 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 right? It never hurts to ask people, really. You just ask them.
Yeah.
The worst thing that you can say is just,
No.
no, we're not. You know,
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, I mean, you guys nailed it. I don't really have
Oh,
like, the only other thing that I can add is like, you know, there are times like when I did an internship when I was in school, and after that I stayed on as part-time, right? I come across opportunities like that. There are people who do it right now.
Ask your internal team right now. So instead of trying to apply for a new job at a different company who you don't know, reach out to the team within your like, current team right now and ask them, hey, do we have a security team, or do we have whatever? Like, can we, you know, maybe it's your time to start it.
The security for our company is so bad. I could get into that for a whole other thing, but you know what? Maybe
It's
I'll
more
try.
common than you think.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we are sadly coming up on the hour, so we do have to start wrapping this up a little bit. If anyone does have like any questions, we have a few minutes to just kind of ask them. But if we don't, then I guess that's all the time we really got for today. Myself, I just have a super quick question, more so for people here and on Discord. When like, how helpful is something like ISSessions in your experience, or like, let's say if you don't have experience like with, I mean you do personally, but like if you were to see someone have that initiative at their school as a student, like being part of the team or attending these meetings twice a month, like does that also help to have on the resume?
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like I was saying previously, this is the same as, you know, you went out, you did something, you promoted a group, you spearheaded an effort, you led an organization, you, at the very least, went up and talked to people in front of a crowd, right? Absolutely counts.
Yeah.
Cool, perfect. Well, if nobody has any questions, like I said, we are coming up in the hour. I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone here in attendance, whether it be in person or online. It is super helpful anytime we can get you guys, people like you and yourselves specifically, to come in and share your experience with us. And you're more than welcome anytime if you ever want to come again. Because we do have more questions, and I'm sure people will come up with them as we go. So again, I just want to thank you guys, and hope to see you soon.
Thank you for having us. I think just one more thing. If you have any questions, add me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, we're in the Discord now as well, so just ping us
True.
on
Yeah. We're also on Discord.
What's your last name?
Jurassic.
Jurassic?
J-E-D.
Just go to my connections.
I'll
and then
send
look for
everyone's
me.
LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
I will be
Perfect,
hitting you
thank
guys
you.
personally. So.
Yeah, and make sure you mention, right? Don't just, and when you add someone on LinkedIn, it's good to have some sort of,
So we know.
yeah, so we know,
Yeah.
because now there's so many fake accounts that tries to steal.
I keep getting CISSP offers. Are you ready to take this test?
Yeah.
Especially,
All the time.
no, there's a lot of people who are like, hey, pay us $300 US and we'll take your SCP for you. That's also a thing. Like,
Yeah?
yeah. So
And there are people who steal your profile.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, so make sure you mention that, you know, we met you at, we were attending this session, so we kind of know who you are.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
Yeah,
a way
stay-
of
stay in
clarifying.
touch.
You stay in touch.
Yeah, stay in touch.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you again.
Of course.
Thanks for having me.